Hi everybody and welcome to Hope Church Alongside. Today we're going to be looking at Isaiah 46, but we're also going to be jumping forward a little bit to Isaiah 48, and we're going to be looking back a little bit at Isaiah 45. And we're going to be asking a couple of questions about one of the huge themes of this, which is, why does God keep on saying, there's only me? I mean, he keeps on repeating it. I mean, he keeps on saying that the idols are nothing, they don't exist, you're making a fool of yourself, and specifically here we're going to be talking about the gods of Babylon. So we're going to be looking at why that happens, even though maybe the gods of Babylon aren't very relatable for us. We don't know much about them, and it doesn't really resonate with us. Actually, what we're going to be seeing is that in our world, some of these things really do resonate. That we can get trapped into a kind of idolatry. We're going to explore that. I know we did that last week. This is a big chunk of Isaiah, and so I think it'd be great to go deeper. So we will have read Isaiah 46, and we're going to be asking one of the questions which we always love to ask in Isaiah, which is, where are we in Iron Age history? Now, as you know, the book of Isaiah speaks during the reigns of Uzziah, goes through the reign of Hezekiah, but here it is speaking to people who are in exile in Babylon quite a bit later. How do we know that? Well, in Isaiah 48, which we'll be looking at in a minute, it actually says, leave Babylon. So we're going to guess that they're in Babylon. It also speaks of Cyrus. Cyrus was the king of this kingdom here, the kingdom of Persia, which would attack the kingdom of Babylon. And then Cyrus, king of Persia, would allow the Israelites to go back. And that's quite an important piece of background for understanding why there's this long discussion about other gods. And in specifically what we've got here is the gods of Babylon, i.e. Bel and Nebo. I actually have a friend who calls himself Marduk. He's Iraqi. He actually names himself after one of the Babylonian gods, but probably that's not most of our experience. You really, I mean, if you get a chance, maybe have a look at his sort of WhatsApp status and stuff like that. Really interesting. Anyway, be that as it may, maybe don't. So here we are in Isaiah 46, where it says, Bel bows down, Nebo stoops low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. The images that are carried about are burdensome, a burden for the weary. In other words, you have to carry the gods. It's your human effort that carries these Babylonian gods around. They stoop and bow down together, unable to rescue the burden, so people have to rescue the burden. Religion, a tie, something that binds you. People have to rescue it. It's done by and for people, but they can't rescue it. They themselves go off into captivity. Now God speaks to the descendants of Jacob, says, listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel. So they're a remnant of the people of Israel. So even though it speaks to these people who have gone into captivity, saying, well, look, I am your God, I have not gone into captivity. I'm with you, but I don't go into captivity. I am totally different from these gods. You whom I have held since your birth and have carried since you were born. In other words, I carry you. My destiny as God is not with you. Your destiny as people is with me. Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am he who will sustain you. There's energy there. I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. Saved. With whom will you compare me or count me equal? To whom will you liken me that we may be compared? In other words, these religious things that the Babylonians were relying on were totally ineffective. They were a human thing. It was a human club, a human sign. You take on the rules, you get into the club. You do these religious things, you're accepted, you can trade, you can do this. That is a function of a lot of human religion. It's enabled people to form clubs and get on together. But the God of Israel is saying, that isn't the way with me. I'm real. I do stuff. And above all, you can trust me to do stuff. Why does that matter? Well, because the God of Israel is going to tell the people of Israel to do something that they need to trust him for. In other words, it's all very well to say God is the real God, he's the acting God, he does things, but if you don't need him to do anything, that's not going to seem really relevant to you. You're not going to be asking yourself, will God save me, if you don't feel like you need saving. You're not going to ask yourself, can I rely on God, if actually you can just rely on yourself. And God is about to ask the Israelites to do something that requires his trust. What is it? It's to leave Babylon. It is to get out of that place where they're in captivity. So I borrowed some verses here from Isaiah 48. It says, people of Israel, leave Babylon, hurry up and get away from the Babylonians. The guys with all the money, with all the power, with all the future. He says, move, leave. Get away from that. You don't need that. You need me. Here is what I want you to announce. Make it known with shouts of joy. There you go. And then the message is to leave Babylon. So why do we need carrying? Because our God is real. And he wants us to live by faith. He wants us to take on faith projects. He wants us to live lives that are not bound by rules and religion, but they're bound by reliance on this God who gives us his promises, who works by power. Now, I've kind of borrowed a picture there from the series we did on Genesis, Journeys of Faith. And that was something that was really important to us as people who plant churches, who start new communities that welcome people in, that speak of Jesus, where in some ways we have to leave the security of the places and the people that we know in order to welcome the people that we don't know. We have to live by faith, because as new churches, it can be tough. It can feel like a risk sometimes. Maybe that's only one example of what it means to trust in a promise. Maybe there's something that God is asking you to do that requires a change or a move, or it's scary, or you don't know how it works out. And really that's going to be our topic about, given that, look, God is telling us that he's real, that he works, he's the only God. It's not about religion, because he wants us to trust him, to live by faith, to do something that requires him to be real. Look at these verses again. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel. The remnant, that's a word about weakness. You whom I have upheld since your birth and have carried since you were born. Listen, even to your old age and grey hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. So what are some of the faith projects that we're on right now? What are some of the things where you think maybe the Lord is giving us words about his uniqueness, his power, his love, his promises, and you think the Lord might be saying, I want you to trust me in this. So that's your first thing. Break into groups and maybe talk about something more. Please do talk about something that you need faith for and pray over that. So catch you in a minute. Rightio, welcome back people, and we're going to be talking a little bit now specifically about salvation and the uniqueness of God. So I've gone here to verse 8, as you might be able to see. It says, remember this, keep it in mind, take it in heart, you rebels. Not a nice way to talk to someone, but whatever. Because actually, we can be rebellious in our hearts sometimes against. Well, anyway, it says, remember the former things, those of long ago, his salvation. I am God, there is no other. I am God, there is none like me. And in order to kind of unpick some background, we're going to take that theme and we're going to have a little bit of a look back at Isaiah 45, where this seems like it's hammered again and again and again. There is none like me. I am the God. I am the only God. I am the only Savior. And we're going to be looking a little bit at some of the sort of specifics around that uniqueness of God. So Steve talked a little bit about the story of the idol maker last week, and looking at the way that we can take created things and sort of put them in the place of the creator. But I'm going to be looking, I'm going to be building on that and developing it in a slightly different way. So if you look at the kind of three things, there are three kind of different areas. He says, turn to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God and there is no other. By myself I have sworn, my mouth has uttered in all integrity a word that will not be revoked. Before me every knee will bow, and by me every knee will swear. Now this is the Lord, Yahweh, the God of Israel. This is not just any God. This is the God who freed the children of Israel from Egypt, from slavery, who gave them his promises throughout their history. You know, of more than 1,000 years, he says, I have carried you. So I think there are three ways that we can sort of build in a form of idolatry into our thinking and our way of looking at people. One is there's this huge modern idea of multiple truths. So, and that idea that there are multiple truths and that, you know, all religions can somehow be the same becomes itself a religion. It's kind of an ultimate truth. God says, I don't stand among other gods. The truths about me don't stand in some kind of gallery of other truths. Jesus said, I am the truth. God himself is the truth. And again, it's not just any God. It's not enough to say that God is one. This is the God of Israel. And specifically, it's the God of Israel who's found in Jesus. You just have a look here on the right-hand side. I hope you can see that. This is from Philippians 2. So it says, it talks about Jesus who was one with God, who poured himself out. He made himself nothing. He took on the nature of a servant. He became a man. He was obedient to death on a cross. And so God raised him up to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every other name. Which name is that? The name of the Lord, the God of Israel. And he says, when the name of Jesus is spoken, every knee everyone will kneel down to worship him. Everyone in heaven and on earth and under the earth will kneel down to worship him. Everyone's mouth will say that Jesus Christ is Lord. And God the Father will receive the glory. So do you see the way that Isaiah 45 is being very deliberately now applied to the Father and the Son? This is not just about the oneness of God. This is about the identity of God, who he is, the one truth, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit working together in salvation. So again, this idea that there are multiple truths, we can kind of buy into that it, you know, it's we're locked in this struggle with atheism, and we want there to be a kind of spiritual side to people's being, and you know, even in schools, this idea we're taught that diversity is good, which it might be politically, but in terms of our minds, we get confused. We get the idea that multiple contradictory things can somehow be true and good at the same time. There is one truth, one ultimate truth, excuse me, which is God, the Creator, the one and only, found in the Father and the Son. So that's one issue. There is one truth, and the idolatry of multiple truths. Secondly, there's an idolatry that we don't need saving, and here humanity is the thing that we begin to worship. In the Arabic group, we talk a lot around this issue around salvation, because it doesn't come naturally to people. Again, the predominant idea here is religion and God making us better people and giving us rules. What do we need to do? And so it's pretty hard work. You know, when we say, what are we saved from and what are we saved into? And actually, when we put man in the center, we forget what salvation is. That fundamental thing of we are alienated from God, we're dead, we're under judgment, we're saved to God's amazing favor, his presence, his Spirit in us. So there is one truth, and there is one salvation, Emmanuel, God with us. And again, we can sometimes maybe soft pedal this. It might even hurt to think about other people being in a place where they need salvation. We can lose the pain of seeing what it means to be alienated from God. And the third thing is the sort of one faith. That is okay. Well, you might know that there is one God, and you might even acknowledge that this God is found in the Father and the Son, and you might even acknowledge that there is a way of salvation. But you don't look. You don't turn. You don't trust. I remember I was about 20 years old. I was in a town called Larne in Northern Ireland, and I went to church. It was a Sunday, and a guy was speaking on this passage, and he said, "Turn to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God and there is no other." And he said, "I know this one thing, that you cannot look in two directions at the same time. You can only look in one place. You can only trust in one thing to be saved." And it was so clear. And I remember thinking, mate, this is really cool, but it's religious. No one's going to be able to hear you. You want people to become Christians, which is great. It's telling the truth, but you got to kind of jazz it up a bit and make it a little bit more attractive. And people just saying, "No, I want that. I believe." And sometimes we can maybe be a little bit too careful or not be clear enough that you need to trust in one thing. So I think there's an idolatry, a possible idolatry. I don't think I'm extending that idea when I say that when we think of multiple truths, when we soft pedal salvation and put humans at the middle of their own destiny and not God, or we soft pedal the idea that you need to trust completely, turn to me and be saved. Trust in the word, that actually we have a kind of an idolatry that Isaiah would recognize. We're no longer seeing the God of Israel. So there's my question, guys, and just maybe that would be something that would be interesting to discuss. Are we going soft on salvation? Maybe we are, maybe we're not. I'm not saying we are, And are there people specifically that we want to pray for? Do we want to say to the Lord, "Okay, show me, I know you are the only Savior. Just remind me of that, and who do you want me to be praying for?" So that's it for today. If you want to stay on the line, we're going to be doing something about George Floyd. It's not really relevant to Isaiah, although there's something there about justice that we've spoken about before. So that's, you're welcome to talk about that after 12. But here we are. Have we gone soft in salvation? I'm just trying to be controversial there, and let's pray.